There we are. So we can call the ordinance committee meeting to order.
Okay, first agenda, nuisance ordinance updates, approved changes.
Okay, so the nuisance ordinance, we reviewed it last time and then we were going to take it to the attorney. I had quite a few things that I wanted to remove from it, but after speaking with the attorney, it sounds like the only thing that we should remove is this part in 4-1-1. The statement should end with vacant for more than 1 year where its condition constitutes a hazard. The next sentence says, or its appearance is a blight. We need to remove that because that's subjective. It has to be a hazard to life or health for it to be declared a nuisance. The fact that it maybe looks bad, that doesn't really have an effect on the legality of the nuisance. Then I had some other concerns with noticing the people and having a hearing before the city council and putting a lien against the property. Legally, we should maintain all these things because we should be doing a resolution to the council. We should, when we do a lien against the property, it should be filed with the clerk and recorder. So when the nuisance is abated, that should be removed. It just sets for a very specific legal procedure to follow that we just haven't been exactly doing it this way. But I think that in the future, I haven't had a nuisance complaint in the last year. But in the future, we need to make sure that the nuisance, before we move on it, that it is a hazard or it, threatens the life or safety of people.
The
So,
health, life, or safety.
right, health, life, or safety. And so the nuisance update is the only one that I wanted to bring before the council and to get Mr. Rubus's recommendation. So I think now that we've heard from the attorney, we understand why all this needs to be in here, and it does need to be 4 pages long, that we could take it to the council for them to approve it, and then we could send it to the codifier with just that change of taking out that part of that first paragraph. So,
And then we don't need to do a public hearing to change the ordinance. It'll just be changed on the codifier side.
yes, it'll be changed when the codifiers do it. So we don't need to make all those changes because all these ordinances will be updated based on the legality of it. So that's my understanding anyway, that we did not need to forward any
Are
further.
you gonna?
Yes, I will. Any concerns about that? No?
That's good. Thank you, Mayor.
Sure, that's all I have right now for the ordinance. There is no public, so no comment, I guess.
4.
All right. No,
Alright, personnel, 404. Employee policy manual updates.
yep, okay. So because we've been spending so much money on paper, I didn't copy all this to give you each a copy, but I will just quickly go over the small things that we're looking at on page 9, and that's part of this employment policy manual. It was updated in July of 23. We're looking at changing page 9 to take out when a position comes open, if practical or reasonable, it may be advertised for 5 working days internally before being advertised externally. If advertised externally, all applicants will be processed through the local job service. So it seemed redundant because even if an in-house person applies, we still look at them all the same. So we were looking at taking that out of page 9. And then there's just, I think, 4 changes. One is change that we're going to have to wait for union negotiations because the holiday pay gets kind of confusing now that we're on 4 10-hour days. And some people work 12-hour shifts and some people work 8-hour shifts. So if you work the holiday, you get paid for the hours that you work. But if you have the holiday off, it appears when I look this up at the state website that they're saying it's 8 hours if you have for holiday pay. But some people are getting 12 hours and some people are getting 10 hours and some people are getting 8 hours. And so the people, it can be like 40 hours a year more for holiday pay, which isn't really quite fair, I don't think. But anyway, we'll have to wait for union negotiations because that is in a couple of union contracts.
Yeah, when the state was doing it, they got the 8-hour pay and then we had to take 2 hours vacation.
Right. And that's what they recommend.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that issue, but we're not going to really tackle that quite yet. And then we did change the holidays, which is section D3, page 30, because it says that under a collective bargaining, the same holidays as recognized by the state of Montana, excluding Sundays, because Sundays are considered a day off. So again, we'll look at that when we go to the union stuff. And then sick leave, we're clarifying that on page 33 because it says sick leave is earned at the rate of 1 day per full calendar month. But we need to specify 8 hours. You get 8 hours of sick leave a month that you accumulate. And then on page 32, again, we need to clarify some of the vacation hours. And I think there's just one more thing that we're looking at making a change to, but of course now I'm not finding it. But we did take the rec part out and just added swimming. And we had done that already and approved it all the way through the council. So I didn't really need to take it to the committee because we did that right after we closed the rec department because there wasn't any other recreational activities that the city is sponsoring. So we do have some requirements that city employees and elected officials need to be aware of regarding social media. And so our PR gal has posted a link to those at the top of our social media page. So we are going to need to get the employees to sign off that they've read that because it just kind of takes away some of the liabilities for statements that employees might make that aren't correct or that are misleading, that they know that when they're commenting on the city's website, they're doing so as a city employee, and there are guidelines that they need to follow. So that's what I have for that. Did you guys have any questions or?
Was Ty going to take a look at this too?
John?
Yeah.
John did look at it with Jess, and then we sent it over to the MMIA, and then they were the ones, I believe, that recommended that we wait on a couple of those things till union negotiations. Yeah.
when I report this, we'll just FYI, then we discussed what
Yeah,
some of the changes, but the council will be notified or before it's finalized, I guess.
right. That'd be good.
Okay.
Because some of it, we can't really do anything about it till we negotiate it, because it's already in their contract.
Yeah. And that,
March, April, May, all that fun time of year.
okay. Number 2, reserve officer for police department and cadet officer for the fire department.
Well, the cadet officers for the fire department were a recommendation from a full-time firefighter that apparently we could maybe contract through the college, and these kids would be volunteers. They would probably be given a t-shirt. They probably wouldn't get paid anything, but they could respond, for traffic control, or they would be shadowing a firefighter. And so they would just be kind of an extra hand. And I thought, well, I didn't look into it too deeply because I wasn't sure if this is something that has come up before. But I did get an email from Katie about the reserve officers. And she said that reserve officers are a valuable addition to the Glendive Police Department that will save the city money. Reserve officers are responsible for buying all their own uniforms and equipment and are on a voluntary basis. They have reserve officer training that they have to attend at their own expense. The only cost the city may incur is paying the reserve officer regular pay if an officer calls in sick and that reserve can work a shift. It takes a while to get a reserve trained to cover a shift because they must be fully trained and they have a minimum hours each quarter that they must volunteer and be in a car with a full-time officer being trained. And they can volunteer to work more if they want to get trained quicker. So in the past, she had reserves through the sheriff's office. They used them when they needed an extra hand on a search warrant, a public event, instead of paying a bunch of officers overtime. They had reserve officers that had trained with the sheriff's department for years, and the sheriff's department never had to deny a deputy a vacation request because they had the reserve officers. So right now we have one person who has expressed interest in being a reserve officer. So I wanted to bring it forward to the personnel to see if you think we want to study it further or get more information, or if you think it's something that we should pursue. Because supposedly
I think if he volunteering and wants to do it, it'd be a good asset.
And then if a opening comes, you've got someone already trained. So I can see the value in it.
The only thing that I hesitate about is when a current employee is the one who is interested in it, and it takes that current employee out of their current position. And then it creates within the department a shortage to then have a volunteer.
Well,
That might be a special
I had some of those
situation.
same questions, and she responded saying that she would make sure that this never ended up being overtime for someone during this reserve training. So that, say, someone who wants to do the reserve training and someone else has to cover their shift.
Yeah.
She said that they can make sure that they don't allow any overtime, that it's strictly volunteer, and that they're only doing it when they're off duty from their other job. So
That takes care of my concern then, I guess.
well, I thought it took care of my concern too, because she said reserve officers rarely get paid for their work, only if they're covering for another officer's shift, and that would take a while to get anybody trained. So right now, we don't have anybody trained to do this, but we have one person that has shown interest in
And
doing it.
who's the person that's training them?
The officer that they're with.
The senior
Mhm.
officer or?
Yep, whoever they're with that day in the car. And so I believe they have to do some other online training as well. And they have a curriculum that they have to follow in reserve officer training, and they have to pay for that on their own.
Is this open to anyone in the public?
I believe so. I believe so. She said there might be some other people who have called her with an interest, but since we don't have a program established, and I would kind of like to see the sheriff's program, and maybe we could mirror it. We don't always have to invent the wheel. But if this has worked for the sheriff's department, there's a chance it could work for the city too.
Is there any obligation on the city's part to hire at the end?
No.
There's no obligation.
Mm-mm. I think that's the only thing we had, those two things. Unless anybody else has anything you request to add.
Anything else? Okay, we'll adjourn at 4:17.
All right, thank you. Me,
Oh, Pete, you want a public comment?
You're good.
Didn't know you